I've got questions. I got questions of all different natures, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask them, and then you answer them as you can.
All right, hit me.
Okay, first one. Let's, the story. I mean, why? Why, where does it come from?
I think I've always been fascinated by religion. I was raised in a household without any religion whatsoever, so it always was sort of a curiosity to me a little bit. I just didn't really know anything about it. It's not where I came from, but I have a son. He's 6 years old now, but a couple years ago he started asking the kinds of questions that kids naturally ask. And you know, his grandmother passed away, and there was just, you know, pets or whatever, what have you, and there were just questions about you know, what happens when we die and so forth. And I realized how much easier it must be if you can tell your kid, oh, well, you go to heaven, and it's really nice. And that's not something that was really in my vocabulary, so to speak. So I think, so I was thinking about that, and then I realized how difficult it is if you're in the grocery store and your kid asks you to buy him a candy bar or a bag of chips or whatever it is, and you say no, and then they say please, and you know, back and forth, and they're begging you and looking at you with those eyes, and usually I cave in and, you know, get the thing. And so then I started imagining, well, what if your kid is asking you to do something that's really against your nature, but they're really asking, and it means a lot to them, and you love them, and, you know. So anyway, all these things sort of circulating around, and so I started to explore that sort of parallels. In fact, I told the actor that I didn't want to know, or I wasn't gonna, let's put it this way, I wasn't gonna tell him where, you know, where that was coming from. I mean, I think I know what I think about it, but I've been really struck as I've been, you know, going to a few festivals with this thing and seeing other people watch it, that people definitely bring their own stuff to watching the thing, and so their interpretation. It, you know, I left it ambiguous intentionally, and it definitely seems like people bring their own stuff to how they perceive that. I go that far. I mean, you know, but yeah, I was really lucky. You know, when you live in LA, I mean, my kid went to school with John Michael Higgins' kid, you know, so you have some just, you know, proximity to people who are in the business, you know.
Son, ask his son if he wants to be in my movie.
Yeah.
You did it, didn't you?
Ask him for a play date.
Okay.
But you know, so John Michael Higgins, I knew his, you know, actually I knew his wife more than I knew him, and I just gave her the script, told her what I was working on, you know, chatting as you would about this and that, what are you up to, blah, 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 and, you know, I'm working on the script for this short. She was curious, I let her read it, she fell in love with it, you know, she gave it, or actually, we had a conversation, she called me, you know, she's like, oh, I love the script, it's really good, you know, we're friends with, you know, these are people who are actors, so they're friends with other actors, and she says, you know, I have this friend, you know, blah, 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 I don't remember his name, some TV actor, you know, something like, I think he'd be really good for the part. And I was like, that's interesting. I was thinking more along the lines of your husband. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she gave him the script, and he dug it, and, you know, and they were in.
And that's it. Yeah, that's all she wrote it, or he wrote at that point,
mean,
right?
You know, there's, when actors aren't getting paid for this kind of thing, they have to really like the material.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's all you have. And I mean, I can't stress, I mean, I will never show this. I wrote, 57 drafts of this thing. I mean, I didn't show it to anybody except my wife until I really felt like I had something. You only have one shot, basically, when you're dealing with people like that, and it can tarnish you for, they'll either think that you are doing stuff worth their time where they won't, and it's just, you really gotta put your best foot forward. So when I felt like I had something really good, then I was willing to show it to people, and it was extremely important to me that it look good and also look warm and natural, and I really wanted to shoot on film for that reason, because up until that point, the digital stuff I was seeing just seemed kind of cold and harsh and just didn't quite have the warmth that, I had a look for this thing that was really clear in my mind, and I just didn't think I could get that. But film is, at this point, prohibitively expensive to shoot, and so I found a DP, a director of photography that I really liked, and they all want to shoot film also, because
it's what DPs do.
Yeah, it's
right.
The best thing out there. But this guy was like, look, I can get you the look you want with the red camera, and I was skeptical, but in the end, the budget just wouldn't really allow me to, or I'd have to sacrifice so many other aspects of what I was trying to do. As a first-time director, you really want, time is your enemy, and you really want time on the set to work with your actors and get everything right. And so it, as the other filmmaker was talking about, all the concessions and balances, and basically, yeah, I could have shot film, but then I could have shot for a day, and
right.
I would have had one scene that looked really good, but that doesn't make a movie. So he told me I can give you the look you want, and he did, and I was really, really pleased. I think like a week before we shot, the Red camera came out with a new sensor, some updated piece of hardware or firmware or something, and it just was a game changer. It looked really good, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I had research, and I had a little book with little color paint chips from the paint store. I thought a lot about this, and so I knew what I wanted it to look like, and I worked closely with the production designers, and I micromanaged them and was really irritating about every color and every light and everything, and
a crazy director.
Yeah, basically.
Well, that's what we do. Okay, very good. So
I played drums in rock bands and stuff, but I was always interested in film, and I moved to LA. I was still playing music, but my day job was working at, film production companies as a PA and a runner, and just sort of experiencing all different aspects of filmmaking and TV and stuff like that. And then I got a job as like a gopher, basically, at a place that made trailers for movies. So making trailers is an entirely editorial thing. It's just taking
it's its own craft and its own style,
it's taking
right?
Stuff that's already been made, and it's and it's distilling 2 hours into 2 minutes, and it's a really, really good way to learn the heart of storytelling, and where the meat of what you're trying to convey is at, and carving away everything extraneous because you don't have time for it. And so anyway, that's how I learned to be an editor, and that's how I just learned to get my hands on the equipment, which at that time, before Final Cut Pro came along, your favorite program, these are systems that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you didn't just have on your home computer. So just getting access to that, it's not like I'm 100 years old, but yeah, even so, when I was coming up, just getting access to that stuff and learning how to do it was half the game. And if you knew how to use it, then you could probably get hired to do something. And so that's how I learned sort of the art of editing, and that's how I learned how to use the equipment, and then I just went out on my own as a freelance editor, and you know, a lot of years working on a lot of crappy things of other people's, and you spend a lot of time as an editor thinking, I could have done this better, maybe, or differently, or something, or I wish I had this, or why didn't they do that, or, you know, and so at a certain point you gotta see if you could actually do it. It was like a big test for myself, you know.
Right.
All right, let's see what I can do, you know. In the film is pretty scientifically accurate. I mean, obviously I took some liberties with the metaphor, you know, at the end of them actually, you know, using a human carcass to you know, propagate, but theoretically possible. And I had entomologists all over the country that were like advisors to me and consultants, and people sending me live beetles and FedEx and, you know, high, you know, fidelity recordings of beetle sounds, and just, you know, it's a pretty interesting community. But yeah, all that, you know, I really strive for veracity when it comes to that stuff, so that's all scientifically accurate. The kind of beetles that I'm talking about in the movie, the American burying beetle, Necrophorus americanus, is extremely endangered, and they're a protected species. So it's illegal to
take their picture.
do stuff with them. And believe me, I put these beetles through the ringer, but literally. So these were a species that looked very similar to that for any layperson, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And so I just did that research and found ones that, you know, looked close enough.